Today I want to factor trinomials that will have a greatest common factor. We haven't done this before, and I just wanted to make sure to do a lesson where you could see how that would work when you have a greatest common factor. This is page 59 in your notebook. This will be the title in your table of contents. And if you'll just take notes and then put this in your notebook when you're finished. Okay, it says when factoring, check for a greatest common factor first. Then remember to include the greatest common factor in your answer. Now, what does that mean? When you look at this problem right here, 4x squared minus 24x minus 108, is there a factor that will divide evenly into all of those factors or all of those numbers? For example, here we have a is 4, b is negative 24, and c is negative 108. A lot of students like to try the number 4 first. Will 4 divide evenly into 4? Of course. Will it divide evenly into 24? Yes. Will 4 divide evenly into 108? It does. So 4 is the greatest common factor. Okay, so when you factor out the greatest common factor, you divide each of these by that number and then write what goes inside here. So I'll have x squared, 1x squared, minus 6x minus 27. Now, I can name my a value, my b value, and my c value. Since a is 1, I'm going to make a chart, a times c, sum of b. I can see right away that's going to be 9 times 3. I need it to be negative 6 and negative 27, so that would be negative 9 times 3. Negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6. And since a is 1, I can go straight to my answer. I don't have to do factoring by grouping. So I'm going to bring down my 4. And I'm going to put 2 empty binomials. I'm going to use that middle variable x. And I'm going to put minus 9 and plus 3. And make sure that you include that greatest common factor in your answer. Remember, the purpose of factoring is undoing the distributive property. So if you redo the distributive property, you should come up with the answer that's up here, and we would. Okay, so let's look at number 2. Do I have a common factor? So hopefully when you look at that, you see that 2 will divide evenly into all of these numbers. So I'm going to divide them all by 2. Sometimes you'll also have a variable for a common factor. I don't have that on any of these examples, I don't believe, but sometimes you will. Okay, so then I'm going to have k squared minus 3k plus 2. Now I know a is 1, b is negative 3, and c is 2. A times c, sum of b. Okay, so I want to multiply and get a positive product, add and get a negative sum. That means both of my terms will be negative. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. Negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3. So that are my two factors. Those are my two factors that are going to work. Bring down my 2. A is 1. Oh, I think I'll do factoring by grouping this time. If you don't want to do it this way, that's fine, but I'm going to do factoring by grouping. So I'm going to replace minus 3k with minus k minus 2k plus 2. I'm going to group the first two together. Make sure you put a plus sign between the two groups. Group the last two together. I'm glad I decided to do this one this way so that you can see this process that needs to happen. Then I'm going to take out a common factor of k. And on the next one, they have a common factor, sort of 2. But remember, when this first term is negative, you have to take out a negative common factor. So although they both don't have negative 2 in common, I am going to factor out negative 2. So negative 2k divided by negative 2 is positive k. Positive 2 divided by negative 2 is minus 1. Did it work? Yes. This and this are the same. So I'm going to bring this down. I think I can get rid of this bracket now. When I use the bracket just so I could separate the parentheses, and it just makes it more confusing if you have a bunch of parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to take what they have in common, put it here down here first with the 2, and then I'm going to cover up what they don't have in common and put k minus 2. And that's going to be my answer. And if I look back up here, if I had done it the quick way, I'd have middle variable k minus 1, middle variable k minus 2. So that is correct. Okay, when I look at the next group, number 3, you can't see it all. Move this over to where you can. Okay, hopefully when you look at that, you see they all have 5 in common. So I'm going to divide them all by 5. And I'm going to have n squared plus 11n plus, I think, 28. Okay, then a is 1, b is 11, c is 28. I think this time I'll just use an area model just to vary it up here. I'm going to put 5 down here because that has to be in my answer, and then put those 2 parentheses. And let's see, I'm sorry about that. That's my little heater behind me kicking on. Sorry for the noise. Okay, I want to get n squared, and I want to get 28. And to get n squared, it would be n times n. To get 28, I could do positive 1 and positive 28, but 1 times n is 1n. N times 28 is 28n. Do these two add together to give me 11? Well, the answer is no, so let's erase. Okay, so 4 times 7, or 2 times 14 is next, so let me just do 2 times 14. 2 times n is 2n. N times 14 is 14n, but 14n plus 2n is at 11n. Nope. Then 4 times 7, positive 4 and positive 7. 4 times n is 4n, and n times 7 is 7n. Is 4n plus 7n 11n? Yes, it is. So I know that my factors are going to be n plus 4, n plus 7. And that's my answer to number 3. Number 4, 5k squared minus 19k minus 30. And I don't see a common factor. 5 and 30 are divisible by 5. 19 is not. 19 is prime, so 1 and 19 are its only factors. And that means that if 19 doesn't divide evenly into these, then they don't have a common factor. And hopefully you see that 19 does not divide evenly into either of those. Oops, I'm making that 20. Okay. A times C. And I'm going to do grouping on this one, but I've got to make this chart first. So I need factors of negative 150 that will give me a sum of negative 19. The bigger one's going to be negative, and that won't give me 119. Negative 75 times 2. That won't give me 119. 3 does go into it how many times? 50 times. That doesn't give me negative 19. 4. I don't think 4 divides evenly into it. 5 does, obviously. 5 times negative 30. That doesn't give me negative 19. What's next? 6. I believe that does. 6 and 25, I believe that's what it is. Negative 25 times 6. Negative 25 plus 6 is negative 19. So that's the one that works. Okay, so now I'm going to replace negative 19k with these two. I'm going to bring down 5k squared minus 25k plus 6k minus 30. I'm going to group the first two together and put a plus sign, and the last two together, whoops, KK. The first group has 5k in common. That would be k minus 5. The second group has 6 in common. That would be k minus 5. It did work because these are the same. And then 5k plus 6 is what's left. So there's my answer to number 4. Number 5. Do they have a common factor? Yes. And I don't think it's 4 because 4 won't go into 34. 4 does go into 72, but 4 won't go into 34. They're all even, so I know 2 divides evenly into all of them. Is that 36, I think? So I know A is 2, B is negative 17, and C is 36. Okay, so A times C is going to be positive 72, sum of negative 17. And I see that right away. Negative 8 times negative 9 is positive 72 and negative 17 when you add. Okay, I am going to bring that 2 down. And we'll do factoring by grouping. So 2n squared minus 8n minus 9n plus 36. Group the first two together with parentheses. Put an addition sign, the second two together. Take out 2n here. Take out negative 9 here. It did work because these are the same. So I'm going to have n minus 4. It does not matter the order of these two. N minus 4 first, and then 2n minus 9. Okay, on to my last one, number 6. They do not have a common factor. So I'm going to do A times C. Oops. Sum of B. I can see I'm running close to being out of time, so I may have to skip this part, cut it up and skip it. Let's see, A times C, that's going to be 210 times 1, 105 times 2, 3 does go into it, 70 times 3, and that's it. Okay, I'm just going to do factoring by grouping. It's fastest for me. I could have done a area model, but it's okay. Group the first two. And the last two. First group has 7k in common. The last group has 3 in common. It worked because those are the same. And if you take these away, 7k plus 3 is left. And I think I'm going to be just in time. 14 and a half minutes, it says. There we go. Hopefully you understand factoring by grouping. And I forgot to mention on this one, number 6, that I did not have a common factor. They do not have a common factor, so that's why there's not a number out front here.